Hi, so this video is going to be about introverted feeling and how it can be a mechanism for rebellion, or just kind of maybe the most rebellious function by nature. And obviously INFPs and ISFPs are the two types that have it as their lead function, so it's kind of a primary mode of engaging with the world, obviously. And FI at its core, I think, probably most of you watching understand that at its core, it's based on an internal set of values, and it's not something that we just take from the external world. We might be influenced by certain ideologies or schools of thought or from certain authority figures, but I think it's very rare for an INFP or an ISFP to just kind of completely go along with and agree with every single rule and tenet set forth in any given school of philosophy or religion or political philosophy or anything like that. We're not very tribal in that way. Our own value system is something that comes from inside of us, and it's something that we're always checking to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing is in line with it. So when an FI user is mature, emotionally and psychologically and physically, we're unafraid to stand up for what is right, especially when there's vulnerable people who are being taken advantage of or mistreated, like elderly people or children or disabled people or animals. We're very much triggered when we see cruelty towards those groups in particular, and we very often take the side of the underdog. And I think a lot of INFPs in particular, we kind of know how it feels to be on the short end of the stick when it comes to people mistreating us or bullying us. And so when we're in a situation where we can actually do something about this, we do. And I actually have a personal anecdote, and this is kind of what spurred the idea for this video, of doing the right thing when the rules dictate otherwise. Okay, so I work in a retail store, and for a while during this whole drama that we're all caught up in, the entire world is caught up in, they had the seating area in the food court unavailable for customers to sit in. And they recently opened it back up at most of the stores. All well and good, everything is fine. And so I was at work, and there was this older lady who she had finished her grocery shopping, and she had come over to this area which was pretty open. They have a lot of chairs and tables there now, but for whatever reason it isn't open for customers. I don't know why it isn't at this particular location, but it's not. And so she asked me and my coworker if she could sit there for a few minutes while she waited for the pharmacy to open. She said, okay, yeah, great, fine. And so everything is fine, and then a few minutes later, and it's about 5 minutes before the pharmacy is going to open, so she's only going to be sitting there for a few minutes, and she's not bothering anything. She's not taking seating away from anybody. We're not in a crowded area, okay? Everything is fine. And another employee eventually comes over, and she quite rudely, this other employee quite rudely tells the older lady, she says, "Ma'am, you can't sit here." And I told this other employee, I said, "She's our guest. She's welcome here. She's sitting with us." And she said, "Well, no, this is for employees only." And I said, "Well, she's our guest. At all the other stores, they have this area open for everyone to sit in, no problem. You can go tell the store manager this. Just matter of factly, you can go talk to the store manager if you feel that strongly about it." And then no further comments were made by this other employee. And the old lady smiled at me. And I think she was very, very grateful that somebody stood up for her. And the reason that I'm so affected by this is because I saw this play out at another store probably close to a year ago. And there was an older man who you can tell is one of those older customers. And you see this at McDonald's too. You have a group of old people that come in there and they hang out and they have coffee, and that's their social interaction. You just know that's what they're there for. And he just wanted to sit down and eat some food for a few minutes that he had purchased in the deli. And he was very rudely told, "You can't sit here," by employees. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know." And they said, it says on that sign right there." And he says, "Oh, I don't see very well, I'm sorry." And as he was walking away, he very pitifully said, "I guess I'll go eat in my car." And it broke my heart. I went and I cried about it in the bathroom. And I made a promise to myself that if I ever saw this happening ever again, that I would intervene and not allow it to happen. And that's why I the old lady was my guest when I was on break. She was my guest. And it's just one of those things. I think in general, when there's these arbitrary rules that aren't the same everywhere at this point, for one thing, and when the moral imperative becomes, we're going to follow the rules, not, am I treating another person with kindness and respect, that's when we have problems. And I think that FI users, they should be really good at seeing this and calling it out. And this kind of mentality of, well, I'm just doing what I'm told, and that's the moral imperative, it removes responsibility from the individual, and it puts it on this nebulous authority figure. And this psychologist, Stanley Milgram, there's the famous Milgram experiment where participants were instructed to administer electric shocks to another person at increasing amounts because they were answering questions incorrectly, to the point where on the dial the voltage was listed as, extremely dangerous and deadly, and people would go along with it because a person in a white coat told them to. And when they're asked why, after it was revealed nobody's actually getting shocked, it was because an authority figure told me to do it, so it's not really me doing it. And I actually read Stanley Milgram's book on this. It's called Obedience to Authority, and maybe I'll do a separate video about this, but it's a really enlightening book because it's kind of about, well, how do war crimes happen? How do so many soldiers, they go along with these things and they do horrible things to civilians and whatever else, and just how is it justified? And it was written after World War II, obviously, and I think it was written either during or after the Korean War as well. So it was influenced by that, and kind of how do people justify it to themselves. And just, I think it's important that, I'm talking about something else in veiled terms here, but I feel like in some ways the humanity has been removed from decision making and just everyday life, and it makes me really sad. And I think that FI users are really sensitive to this kind of thing, or they should be, and they should know when it's happening. And you have George Orwell, for example, and I've spoken about him before. He's an INFP, and he wrote 1984 and Animal Farm, and those are the two of the main dystopian novels in various ways. Animal Farm was a thing about communism and all this, but 1984 in particular, at its core, it's about humanity. It's not about the authoritarian regime that these people are under. It's about humanity and kind of how humanity has been just driven out of people. And, I wrote this book maybe as a warning for people or as a metaphor. And so anyway, I think introverted feeling is maybe the most rebellious function in some ways, because I think it's also one of the more instinctual functions. I think FI is a baseline instinctual function for like psychological instincts and social instincts, and I think SE is the most instinctual function for engaging with the outside world and responding to threats and things like this. And so yeah, anyway, this was kind of a really disjointed video, and perhaps I shouldn't have made it because I'm not necessarily in the best most level-headed mindset, as I usually try to be when I make videos. And if you disagree with me completely and you think that I'm being crazy, or if I'm just misinterpreting reality, please let me know. I would love to hear about it. I'm always open to different perspectives. If you have any other questions or comments, please let me know. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you are having a good day wherever you may be. Bye.